All right. Hello, everyone. I'm seeing a lot of people here. So we have 260 and counting from all over Asia. So hello, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well. It's great to see everyone here in Swipe RX's webinar. And mind you that we are also live in YouTube. So the viewers there can also participate as long as you are in the seminar for at least 45 minutes. And you should be able to answer the evaluation form afterwards. I know everyone is excited to learn about the updates about the COVID-19 vaccination program across Asian countries. But before anything else, just a few reminders. I will be your moderator for today. My name is Mikey Mendoza, and I'm a community pharmacist from the Philippines. So just to remind you for our house rules, we will mute your microphones while the session is ongoing. You may submit your questions via Zoom question and answer box. You can see a chat box there, the Q&A box portion at your screen. You can place your questions there and the Q&A will follow right after the session. We will try to attend most questions within the given time. And in order to get the certificate, you need to attend the webinar for at least 45 minutes. The instructions for the issuance of certificates will be announced at the end of this session. So number 6, sit back, relax, and enjoy the webinar. Now, what's new in Swipe RX? Now, may I call on Ms. Ike to give us a few updates about the trending events on Swipe RX?
All right. Thanks, Mikey, and good afternoon, everyone in across of Indonesia, Philippines, Cambodia, Malaysia, and everyone from any other countries that is joining us today in a very interesting and lovely afternoon. And welcome again to the Swipe RX regional webinar. And for this edition, we are going to learn together about the role of pharmacies, how we can contribute better to the COVID-19 vaccination program in each of our respective countries, because what we want is the world to heal better and faster so that we can have what's so-called normal life, the beautiful life that we have before the virus is attacking the whole world. And SwipeRx is very grateful to have you today with us. As you know, SwipeRx are the largest pharmacy professional network in the Southeast Asia. So we are here to deliver to you the best experience for upgrading your professional level, your professional expertise with our CPD modules. There are a lot of CPD modules that you can take in all of our countries, in all of our markets, as well as also you can participate in our projects that we work together with our public health sectors, our partners, and you can also connect it with fellow pharmacy professional, as well as having your training and to be having something more like this, which is more upcoming webinar events. So thank you once again for being here all with us. And please keep updated via your Swipe RX application, because there are a lot of things that we can enjoy together. And as a pharmacist, we can contribute better to our society. So by this, we are going to start our regional webinar with the lovely speakers, a very great expert from Indonesia, Malaysia, Cambodia, and the Philippines. And by this, thank you very much once again. I am delivering it back to Mikey. Take it over, Mikey.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ike. Yes, so get more convenient experience by updating Swipe RX app to the App Store. It's available on Google Play as well as on the App Store in iPhone users. So we have 4 speakers all around Asia. Now let's dig in deeper to that. To introduce our first speaker from the Philippines, he is an alumnus of the University of Perpetual Health System, Dr. Jose G. Tamayo Medical University in Binyan, Laguna, where he obtained his bachelor's degree in pharmacy. A duly registered pharmacist, He pursued his master's degree in business administration at the International Academy of Management and Economics in Makati City. He is currently the president of the BYP Trading and Consultancy Services, providing consultancy to different pharmacy-related companies, startup tech companies, and other professional organizations. He is also a part-time lecturer at the University of Makati College of Allied Health Science Pharmacy section. Proving to be one of the most sought-after speakers in the pharmaceutical industry, his portfolio boasts of speakership and learning program development for top pharmaceutical companies such as Johnson& Johnson, AstraZeneca, MSD, Pfizer, Viatris, Unilab, Brightman, and different pharmaceutical retail establishments. He is currently the Assistant Secretary of the Philippine Pharmacists Association Incorporated. He is the immediate past president of the Asian Young Pharmacists Group and was one of the trailblazers in the earlier years of Young Pharmacists Group Philippines, with which he served as the second president. He is also member of the Philippine Pharmacists Association Speakers Bureau, a pool of duly qualified and esteemed resource persons for different engagements across the country. Currently, he is also the chairman of Philippine Pharmacists Association Committee on Advocacy and the national program manager of the Philippine Pharmacists Association Immunizing Pharmacists Certification Program. Under his chairmanship, the training of pharmacists to be vaccinators is rolled out last March. This new role of pharmacists will pave the way for expanded role of pharmacists as healthcare professionals and will potentially change the landscape of the profession. Let us all welcome Mr. Brian Posadas.
Thank you so much, Mikey, for that very generous introduction. Allow me to share my screen. A pleasant afternoon to everyone, to our dear colleagues across Asia. It's always a privilege to impart knowledge and some exciting things that is happening in the Philippines that hopefully would also encourage everyone to be more active in expanding our role and our contribution in the deployment of COVID-19 vaccine. So let me start my presentation again in reminding us how important vaccine is. Again, as mentioned by the World Health Organization, vaccine really brings us closer to protecting everyone against preventable diseases. This pandemic has caused us a lot of anxiety, being away from our dear friends and being not able to meet them, spend time with them. But with vaccine, of course, we are expecting like how it is in other countries where they have already reached critical mass of vaccinated individuals. They have already restarted how they live life the way before it was pandemic. A vaccine activates our immune system without making us sick. And this is something that I have to remind everyone because most of the time people would think that vaccine is the cure or the treatment that we could use to stop this pandemic. But it actually helps our immune system. It is still our immune system that would fight off this infection. And that's the reason why this must be conveyed to the public. So it would alleviate or address some misconceptions and some of them thinking that how come we're already vaccinated but we still tested positive of COVID. Again, it is not a force field that will not let you be infected. You can still be infected except that your immune system can actually fight it off and prevent any severe infection or problem. No? Many dangerous infectious diseases can be prevented in this simple and effective way. And we know vaccine has proven its worth in combating infectious diseases. But the challenges really in COVID-19 vaccines, the vaccination deployment, which all of us and most of the countries are experiencing, are these four, the major challenges. There are a lot of challenges, but of course, the major challenges that we have to face day in, day out in the deployment of vaccination for COVID-19 is really on the availability of vaccines. We know there is a scarce supply of resources. That's why there is prioritization. But aside from the availability of vaccines, logistics or cold chain management is also a big challenge for all of us, considering that there are some vaccines that's even considered that requires ultra cold storage, where not all states or countries would be able to handle and make sure that it does not have any cold chain breach. So logistics and cold chain management of this vaccine is also a challenge. Another thing is the demand generation. not everyone would want to get vaccinated. There are a lot of anti-vaxxers that is going around our community. There is no country exempted of anti-vaxxers. There are a lot of anti-vaxxers, and this has been affecting the demand for this vaccine. Again, we already have a problem for the availability of vaccine, and when your country already have the stocks, it is now the demand that becomes our problem. And another thing that we have to always consider here is the lack of human resources to administer COVID-19 vaccines. Again, we cannot just rely to any non-healthcare professionals to administer vaccines. We need people, okay? Because vaccines will not be administered directly to the patient without an intervention of a human. We need warm bodies. We need people who would administer this vaccine and get it into the system of every countryman or our countrymen. Now, especially in the Philippines, really, there is a dramatic drop in vaccine confidence in the Philippines. Especially, we came from a situation where there was what we call dengue vaccine scare. A lot of people are afraid of vaccine, and from the experience of having a new vaccine for dengue with unproven, no, undoc, ano, no, with some news that it causes harm to our patients, a lot of Filipinos would always think of what would happen considering that this vaccine for COVID is also new. So basically, that there is a drop in the vaccine confidence in the Philippines. That's why there is a massive effort that we need to do to increase that vaccine confidence. We need to convey the message that despite of the shorter period of time used in the development of this COVID-19 vaccines, it is safe and it went through the protocols. For COVID-19 vaccines in the Philippines, it went down to as low as 65%, but good enough. Recently, we have roughly around 75% vaccine confidence for COVID-19. But these things must be addressed as well. Now, the question really for a pharmacist is how can we help? How can we help of all these challenges? We know there are challenges, but as a pharmacist, as a healthcare professional, what can we do? How can we pitch in and help the healthcare community? Because you see, in the Philippines, what we call it like a whole of nation approach, a whole of society approach. We cannot live in an area where there is still strong turfism that we could not set aside our differences and pitch into help. We really have to pitch into help to make sure that we get those vaccines into the patients. Now, this is the three main roles of the pharmacist that we are always embarking on or looking at in the Philippines as a vaccinator, as a facilitator, and as an advocate. Now, pharmacists as an advocate is very critical because pharmacists are strategically located in different spectrum of our society, especially community pharmacists. We are where the patients is, and they are talking to us, engaging us to buy their medications. If we are an advocate, we could also help address those misconceptions. Again, I would always say this: there will always be myths, but it can only be countered with facts. And if we remain silent of not telling them or not educating them, the fake news will continuously proliferate. So as a pharmacist, we have to continuously educate and motivate our patients to get those vaccines. We have to address those vaccine hesitancy, those questions about vaccines. As a healthcare professional, as a pharmacist, we are positioned and knowledgeable about these things. Therefore, we must address it head on. We cannot avoid those questions about vaccines. We have to address those questions, and we need to correct misconceptions. We always have to remember that we have to anchor on benefits versus risk. As we always say, pharmacists would always balance benefits versus risk. In the same way, in the vaccines, there may be some reported side effects or adverse events, but we have to measure the benefit. Does it outweigh the risk? And if it outweighs the risk, as a pharmacist, we should be responsible to advocate for immunization. When we say facilitator, this is other tasks that a pharmacist could do. We can help in different aspects in the vaccination rollout. In the Philippines, a pharmacist is involved even in the cold chain management, in the availability of supply, pharmacovigilance, Pharmacists are involved in all these aspects in handling, preparing, reconstitution of these vaccines as may be needed. Pharmacists are really in charge of making sure there is no cold chain breach. And this is one of the roles of the pharmacist in COVID-19 vaccination deployment. And all of these roles are critical. Again, we would always say in uh, every role that we play in the entire COVID-19 vaccination deployment, all of it are important. We have to make sure that we are knowledgeable enough and we are ready to respond to the needs of our patients. And lastly, one of the newest that we are rolling out in the Philippines is that Filipino pharmacists are working as vaccinators. As I mentioned earlier, we know that there is a scarcity of human resources. Our doctors and our nurses are not enough to administer 140 million jobs. We have 103 million population in the Philippines. We need at least 70% to reach herd immunity. So that's around 140 million jobs or vaccinations. But looking at the number of medical professionals, nurses, and midwives, the physicians, the midwives, and nurses, we know it's not enough. That's why we have to respond. Because as a healthcare professional, we know we can do this. Now, we know how to prepare the medicine. Much as well, I don't know, why not limit ourselves in not administering the vaccine? So we have to go and get that role. We have to train ourselves and get that role as a vaccinator to pitch in and help to make sure that we reach herd immunity as fast as we can. Now, there are some references that we could see to show the impact of pharmacists in vaccine uptake. We're talking about vaccination uptake in general. The role of pharmacists as a vaccinator is not entirely new in the Philippines. This has been ongoing to different countries. And in the US, more than 32% of adults in the United States have reported receiving a flu vaccine from a drugstore or supermarket pharmacy. And based on the news articles that we are also receiving, pharmacists in the community is very critical, no? And has contributed a lot in making sure that a lot of Americans get vaccinated. They just have to go to the pharmacy and get their vaccination shots. And this is why they're faster in reaching their herd immunity. The United Kingdom also had vaccination way back in 2013, 2014, and we've been seeing significant numbers of patients getting their vaccines in their pharmacy. Also in Canada, vaccination rates in older people were increased in parts of the country where pharmacy vaccination clinics were introduced. The main vaccination routes in Canada are now at pharmacies, 35%, followed by the doctor's office. I saw one news article that showed the Prime Minister getting their vaccine shots in a pharmacy. You see, this is how critical a contribution of pharmacists is in the deployment of vaccination. In Australia, I think Australia. Okay. Almost 15% of people who got vaccinated said they would not have taken the vaccination if the service had not been available in the pharmacy. In other countries, Ireland, Portugal, France, we've been seeing numbers increasing because pharmacists really is a critical player in making sure that we get those vaccines to the patients. In Asia, when we did our research, there is no Asian country that promulgated a law allowing the pharmacists to administer vaccines except the Philippines. The Philippines technically is the first Asian nation to legally permit pharmacists to vaccinate. We have law that we hope could really pave the way to this new professional service of pharmacists. RA 10918 of the Philippines has stated clearly as part of the role of the pharmacist, expanded role of pharmacists in the vaccination is really to administer adult vaccines, including prophylactic exposure vaccines like your COVID-19. Aside from 10918, there is also another law in the Philippines. It's RA 11525, specifically for COVID-19 vaccination, that also allows pharmacists to be vaccinators. So basically, we have all the legal means, the legal mandate given by the state to expand the role of the pharmacist and help the community. We push for its urgent implementation, and that's the reason why the Philippine Pharmacists Association, being the national organization of pharmacists, were able to roll out the training program for the pharmacists. Ideally, it should be PPHA providing the training, and then will be certified by the Professional Regulation Commission. However, because of the urgency of the matter at hand to make sure that COVID-19 deployment is done as fast as we can, vaccination deployment is done as fast as we can, the Board of Pharmacy has accredited the Philippine Pharmacists Association and already requires the PPHA to issue the certification, which is already the proof of the eligibility of the pharmacist to administer adult vaccine. So basically, when a pharmacist was trained by the National Organization of Pharmacists, the program that I'm running, they are already legally allowed to administer vaccines. Now, this is what we're doing in the Philippines to help in the COVID-19 vaccination deployment, aside from our usual roles in the supply chain. The Philippine Pharmacists Association launched the Immunizing Pharmacy Certification Program last April 5, 2021. And to date, we have 143 fully certified immunizing pharmacists, and almost 400 are undergoing their training. Again, the training that we're providing now already includes all adult vaccines that can be administered in the pharmacy, patterned on how our Western friends are also doing it. This is part of our IPCP team. Most of them are our assessors. And some of you may be thinking, how are we providing the training? We have to do it hybrid. Now, there is an online part, there is a self-study part, and there is also a face-to-face assessment that has to be done to ensure that the skills were developed with the pharmacists. And this is how we expand. Now, this is part of different batches of pharmacists being trained using this same platform as Zoom, except that there are also supervised skills assessment online. So uh, basically, this is how we're providing the training. Much as we want to make it a face-to-face training program, especially we're talking about skills, we have to be innovative. So for the concepts, for the theories, we have to make it online. But there is just one part in the latter part of the program where there should be a face-to-face assessment with a proctor. So basically, these are the team. These are the batches of pharmacists. We have ongoing now. It's batch 5. We have 102 participants, and all of these 102 participants is coming from a chain drugstore in the Philippines. We will be launching another batch 6, on July 5, where we are expecting another 100 plus pharmacists being trained to be immunizers. And just to share with our colleagues in Asia, even the government really has already embraced and is very optimistic and happy having the pharmacist as part of the vaccination team as a vaccinator, aside from the typical role in the supply chain. And these are some of the immunizing Filipino pharmacists in action. They are already administering the shots. The one here on the left, if I'm not mistaken, is Irish. She's also with us as part of the panelists of Swipe RX. She is also a certified immunizing pharmacist. And we have other pharmacists here who are also administering already adult vaccines. So this is where we are going, and we will continuously go to make sure that the pharmacies are felt. Now, some of you may be thinking, why do we have to push for immunizing pharmacists? Why do we have to push for additional service? You and I know that before this pandemic, a lot of our community would always perceive pharmacists as a glorified salesperson, just a shop seller, no? They are not considering us as healthcare professional. If there is a time for us to step up and show them that, hey, we are healthcare professionals, we can help you, the time is now. The time is now for the community to realize that pharmacist has a critical role and could help us get away of this pandemic and heal the world faster. We need to embrace that role, and that's why in the Philippines, we are strongly pushing for this new service, because we know sooner or later the services of the pharmacist would change. We will not be we should not rely on merely dispensing, because sooner or later technology could come in. Technology could take over some of those clerical roles that we're doing. We need to provide services, and we need to put an avenue for them to realize that they can get more from a pharmacist. And because we are in a crisis, we believe that this is an era of change where future starts. And as I end my discussion very briefly this afternoon, because we have a lot of credible speakers as well with us, in the midst of every crisis lies great opportunity. We may be going through some tough times, but to heal the world faster, we need to stand up and pitch in and make our contribution felt. We have to get out of our comfort zone because during this time of crisis, the country, our country depends on us more. Changing landscape in pharmacy profession is inevitable. We have to move into the services because again, technology might take us over. We have to go to the services where there is no technology available and we need to let our presence be felt by the community. And we always believe that the time to pivot is now. We have to heal the country fast. We have to heal the world fast. We need to show them that pharmacists can make a contribution. Thank you so much and have a nice day.
Thank you very much, Sir Brian, no, for explaining us the different roles of pharmacists, especially now in the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, we have facilitators, we have vaccinators, and as well as also the initiative to have pharmacists as vaccinators in the Philippines, which is, I personally can see that it's very, very fast. The training is very, very fast, and almost the number of of vaccinators being confirmed is increasing by the day. No, so once again, thank you very much, Sir Brian, for that very, very knowledgeable lecture that you given us. Now, for our second speaker from Malaysia, he graduated his bachelor's degree in University Sains, Malaysia, finished his PhD in pharmacy in the University of Tennessee, United States, and undergone a certificate program in global tobacco control at the John Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. He is currently head of Kuliah of Pharmacy. He is also the chairman of the Malaysian Pharmacy Society Immunization Chapter. He also serves as supervisor for postgraduate researchers. He also co-authored several publications, one about the prevalence, pattern, and perception regarding e-cigarette and vape use among Malaysian adults. Let us all welcome Professor Muhammad Hanike bin Nick Mohammed.
Thank you so much, Mikey. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Swipe RX, and all of you have joined us today. It's actually in the afternoon time in Malaysia. It's a great opportunity to share regarding COVID-19 in particular, the antiviral agents involved in the management of COVID-19. This is the topic given to me. So let me try and share the screen. Okay, so I'm representing both the International Islamic University Malaysia and also the Malaysian Pharmacists Society Immunization Advocacy Chapter. So thank you to Brian, and also my deepest appreciation to the other speakers as well. Of course, very inspiring talk by Brian just now. So we hope that we'll embark in Malaysia the same program. We have a similar program called certification for pharmacists as vaccinators as well. But I will share that on another platform because the assigned topic for me is talking about antiviral to prevent further spread and prompt treatment of COVID-19 patients. Okay. So I will be highlighting the life cycles of SARS-CoV-2 and the potential drug targets, and I will zoom in into the drug information for COVID-19 pertaining to the antivirals. I know it's a busy slide, it's pharmacology back again, but we know that to start off to understand the antivirals agents for SARS-CoV-2, we need to understand a bit about the genome that encodes for the 29 proteins involved in the infection, replication, and also virion assembly process. Because like other coronaviruses, we know that SARS-CoV-2 are characterized by the presence of the crown-like spikes on the surface. And the spike S protein from the SARS-CoV-2 contains the receptor binding domain that binds to the angiotensin converting enzyme 2 and thereby promotes membrane fusion and also uptake of the virus into human cells by endocytosis. So the receptor binding domain, or RBD, present in the spike protein is the most variable region of the coronavirus genome. Structural and biochemical studies have suggested that the receptor binding domain from SARS-CoV-2 binds with the high affinity to ACE2 compared to other SARS-CoV-2 COVID viruses. Okay, however, the human ACE2 protein variability may also be a factor for the high binding affinity. And the life cycle of SARS-CoV-2 and the potential drug targets as shown here in the diagram would then highlight the fact that SARS-CoV-2 enters target cells via two methods, either via endosomes or plasma membrane fusion, via endosomes or plasma membrane fusion. So in both ways, spike proteins S1 or S2 mediate attachment to the cell membrane by binding to the ACE2 receptor. And then in the endosomal, via spike proteins are activated by cathepsin L, or alternatively by transmembrane protease serine 2 in close proximity to ACE2 receptor, which then initiates fusion of the viral membrane with the plasma membrane. Viral RNA is then released and part is translated to produce polyproteins PP1A and PPAB, which are then cleaved by proteases, okay, to yield the 16 non-structural proteins that form the RNA replicase transcriptase complex. This complex drives the production of the negative sense RNAs through both replication and transcription. A subset of around 9 subgenomic RNAs, including those encoding all structural proteins, are translated. And then viral nucleocapsids are assembled from genomic RNA and protein in the cytoplasm, followed by budding into lumen of endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi complex. And lastly, virions are released through exocytosis. So sorry for the detail, but all these 6 processes are relevant because then we know where the potential SARS-CoV-2 targets and the drugs are, as shown in red. The drugs and the treatment strategies investigated definitely aim to inhibit viral entry or replication into human cells, avoid cytokine storm, or decrease hyperinflammation and also lung injury. Okay, so these are the summary of the possible modes of action of antiviral agents for COVID-19. What do we have? We know these are some of the antivirals and also some repurposed drugs with antiviral activities against the SARS-CoV-2. We know about remdesivir, favipiravir, lopinavir, ritonavir combination, and other HIV protease inhibitors, the use of hydrochloroquine or chloroquine with or without azithromycin. I will just briefly touch on those because they are no longer warranted. Very controversial, ivermectin, and some other new agents in studies. Okay, so for the first 2 antiviral agents shown here, the RNA-dependent RNA polymerase inhibitor, we have remdesivir and favipiravir. So the details in this slide, I do not wish to go through in very detail. It would take too much time. Just to highlight the mechanism of action, the dosing regimen, contraindications, some of the adverse effects also shown here, and then some drug interactions. This information would be useful for pharmacists, particularly hospital pharmacists, in dealing with COVID-19 patients. Okay. Oh, sorry. Okay. For the protease inhibitors, we have lopinavir, ritonavir at the bottom part of the slide. Okay, and similarly with previous drugs, you have the MOA, or mechanism of action, the dosing regimen, the contraindication, adverse effects, and also some drug interactions, particularly the effect of the cytochrome 3A4 inhibition and also induction. The nucleoside inhibitors are listed here, okay, but the agents are not used in particular for COVID-19. It's just for completeness sake, I've listed them down as related to the mechanism of action as similar to previous drugs. Okay, Also, you have neuroamidase inhibitor, nucleoside inhibitor, okay, listed here, and also polymerase acidic endonuclease inhibitors. Okay, so I will just zoom into remdesivir, which was the first FDA-approved antiviral for the management of COVID-19. If you look at the US National Institute of Health treatment guidelines, it's still listed remdesivir for hospitalized adult and pediatric patients, whether they are mechanically ventilated or not, in terms of dosing regimen, duration of treatment, and so on and so forth. Okay. Similarly, the adverse effects and the monitoring parameters in relation to safety and efficacy are listed, as well as the role of the pharmacist to ensure safety and effectiveness of the drug by also trying to avoid drug-related problems, including drug-drug interactions, actual or potential. And then you also have information that you would be useful for you as particularly hospital pharmacists, looking at evidence for the particular drug, and in this case, in remdesivir, for the clinical trials, which is readily obtained from the link provided, for example, from the NIH. Okay, of course, we initially heard about the use of chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine, and after some time, and also Cochrane has published the review, and we know that there's no clinical benefit in treating COVID-19 patients with hydroxychloroquine. In fact, there's a possible increase in adverse events. The evidence for prevention is still very uncertain, and due to the lack of benefit, there's little or no evidence on clearance of the virus. So it's actually no longer recommended. Okay. And we have the lack of demonstrable clinical benefit in treatment of COVID-19, as well as no trials in terms of the use of hydroxychloroquine for prophylaxis, and evidence for hydroxychloroquine effective as prophylaxis also limited. Okay, and due to limited effectiveness and increase in adverse effects, so it was not recommended. Recently, in February this year, there's the WHO Solidarity Trial Consortium that looked into different agents, including antivirals for management of COVID-19, and supposedly with antiviral activity, and this would include the remdesivir and also the combination of lopinavir. So hydroxychloroquine also reviewed, as well as interferon, and all of these are compared to controls. So you can see from the Kaplan-Meier graphs that overall effects, yeah, when they look at the 405 hospitals in 30 countries involving 11,330 adults who underwent randomization, about 2,750 assigned to receive remdesivir, 954 to hydroxychloroquine, 1,411 to lopinavir without interferon, and 263 to interferon, including 651 patients randomized to interferon plus lopinavir, and 4,088 to no trial drug. Very good adherence, around 94 to 96, midway to treatment with 2 to 6% crossover. And in total, 1,253 deaths were reported. And the 28 mortality from the Kaplan-Meier plot was 11.8%, 39% if the patient was already receiving ventilation at randomization, and 9.5% otherwise. Death actually occurred in 301 of the 2,743 patients receiving remdesivir, and in 303 of 2,008 receiving control, giving a rate ratio of 0.95 with confidence interval of 0.81 to 1.11, p-value 0.5, not significant. In 104 of 947 patients receiving hydroxychloroquine, as you can see there, and in 84 of 906 receiving is control. Ratio is 1.19. Okay, confidence interval 0.89 to 1.59, p 0.23. And in 148 of 1,399 patients receiving lopinavir, and in 146 of 1,373 receiving control, the rate ratio is 1, confidence interval 0.79 to 1.25, p-value is also non-significant, 0.97. Okay, I just for completeness sake, we'll go through the interferon, which is 243 of 2,050 patients. And in 2016 of 2,050 receiving control, the rate ratio is 1.16, confidence interval 0.96 to 1.39. So all this data concludes that no drug definitely reduced mortality overall or in any subgroup, or reduce initiation or ventilation or hospitalization duration. But you can look at the lower part of this plot, the risk groups calculated by summation of relevant strata. You can see the patient at lower risk, strata with no ventilation. You can see that the confidence interval is 0.63 to 1.01 favoring remdesivir, although it's not significant, but maybe in some part of the world, the use of remdesivir in low-risk patient is based on this data. We know that some countries are using it, okay? But in Malaysia, we have another antiviral, that is used, favipiravir. So it's used in category 3 of patients, okay? As you in Malaysia, the clinical stage is divided into 5 stages, where 1 is asymptomatic, 2 symptomatic but no pneumonia, 3 symptomatic with pneumonia, 4 clinical stage is symptomatic pneumonia requiring supplemental oxygen, and the clinical stage 5 is when patients are critically ill with multi-organ involvement. Okay. So the patients are treated with favipiravir, category 4 if patient has any of the following risk factors, at least 50 years old with comorbidity and stage renal failure, and also in the presence of any warning signs. Okay, which so the dosing is 1,800 milligram BD for 1 day and followed by 800 milligram BD for 5 days. Although the optimal duration of antiviral treatment is still unknown, so that and then the drug is can be considered to be stopped or not initiated in hyperinflammatory phase of the disease, which is if you follow the COVID-19 natural history, stage 1 is early infection, stage 2 is pulmonary phase, where there's viral replication, lungs affected, there's pneumonia, dyspnea, chest x-ray opacities, and on CT there's glass opacities. But in stage 3, that's where the hyperinflammatory phase, and there's a host inflammatory response with pneumonia, sepsis, respiratory failure, acute respiratory distress syndrome, and of course the cytokine storm that causes increased risk of death. So for the favipiravir, it cannot be used in women of childbearing potential, teratogenicity effect, so not for pregnant patients or breastfeeding patient, and the use of contraception is what pharmacists need to be alerted to for the patients, avoiding the use in patient with renal impairment or estimated GFR less than 30 mL per minute, and of course consultation is needed if patient on regular dialysis, and the listed common side effects are hyperuricemia, diarrhea, elevated transaminases, and neutropenia, and of course some completeness on the drug interaction information. Okay, so for the controversial ivermectin, okay, we know that from this diagram, we know earlier from reports of in vitro studies which suggested that ivermectin acts by inhibiting the host importin alpha or beta 1 nuclear transport proteins, which are part of a key intracellular transport process that viruses hijack to enhance infection by suppressing the host antiviral response. Ivermectin acts by docking, and this may interfere with the attachment of the severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2 spike protein to the human cell membrane. Some studies of ivermectin have also reported potential anti-inflammatory properties, which have been postulated to be beneficial in people with COVID-19. Okay, and of course, there have been at least 55 studies as per data on 16 May 2021, and looking at early treatment and late treatment, showing some effects, some improvement in terms of ivermectin. Okay, however, results from adequately powered, well-designed and well-conducted clinical trials are still needed to provide more specific evidence-based guideline on the role of ivermectin in the treatment of COVID-19. I know that in the Philippines, just recently approved to be prescribed by physicians. So we hope that more data of good quality will come out soon, particularly from randomized control trial. Malaysia is also currently undergoing a clinical trial for ivermectin, so we hope that the result will be available before year end, expected in September. So we'll see whether Malaysia will also follow suit in terms of the use of ivermectin. Okay. However, some other drugs like molnupiravir, which is the prodrug of the ribonucleoside analog, okay, of beta-DN hydroxycytidine, which is rapidly converted in the plasma to N-hydroxycytidine, and then to the active 5' triphosphate formed by the host kinases. The active form serves as a competitive substrate for the virally encoded RNA-dependent RNA polymerase, and once incorporated into nascent viral RNA, induces an antiviral effect via accumulation of mutations that increase with each viral replication cycle. Okay, so there's been some trial which is listed here, phase 2A, which evaluated the safety, tolerability, and antiviral efficacy of molnupiravir in the treatment of COVID-19, and tested 202 participants, found that virus isolation was significantly lower in participants who received 800 milligram molnupiravir versus placebo at day 3. Okay, and at day 5, virus was no longer isolated from any participants who received 400 to 800 milligram of molnupiravir versus 11.1% of those receiving placebo. Okay, both of these results at day 3 and day 5 were clinically significant. Time to viral clearance was also decreased, and a greater proportion overall achieved clearance in participants who were administered 800 milligram molnupiravir versus placebo. It was concluded that molnupiravir was generally well tolerated, with similar number of adverse effects across the groups, particularly headaches and diarrhea. Okay. Last but not least, a randomized double-blind, sponsor open placebo-controlled single and multiple dose escalation study in healthy adults evaluating the safety, tolerability, and pharmacokinetics of this drug, PF07321332, which is an oral antiviral protease inhibitor, which has been reported to have potent antiviral activity in vitro. And they started the phase 1 trial in March this year, as well as another intravenous drug from the same company, another protease inhibitor in phase 1B multi-dose trial in hospitalized clinical trial participants with COVID-19. So we hope to have more data and more studies, particularly soon, because ongoing research and also pharmacovigilance of existing drugs, particularly antivirals for COVID-19 management is definitely required, and there's the definite role of pharmacists in this area. Antivirals for prevention and treatment, particularly to be used at home by people who are tested positive for infection, and also to stop the virus spreading and speed up recovery time, are definitely crucial, and we can understand that it is in the pipeline, and we hope that the results will be positive so that we can overcome the pandemic in the near future. Of course, right now, pharmacists can also apply the power of knowledge on antiviral drugs to ensure good quality data on effectiveness and safety of COVID-19 management. With that, I thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Nick, for the scientific explanation of different medications that are and were used for the treatment of COVID-19. Thank you very much, Professor. Now, once again, I will remind all the participants here to don't forget to stay in this program for 45 minutes in order for you to have your certificates. Once again, please attend this webinar for at least 45 minutes for you to avail your certificates at the end of the session. All right. To proceed to our third speaker from Indonesia, she graduated her bachelor's degree in the Universitas Padjadjaran. She is currently the CEO of West Java Development Institute Universitas Padjadjaran, the chairperson for Indonesian Pharmacy Collegium, the chairperson for the COVID-19 Task Force Indonesian Pharmacists Association. She is the head of the Medication Therapy Adherence Clinic Faculty of Pharmacy, Universitas Padjadjaran, an independent commissioner of PT Prodia Widya Husada, a fellow of Academic Health System from the Universitas Padjadjaran, and a member of the National Commission on Herbal Medicine. Let us all welcome Professor Dr. Kerry Lestari.
Okay, thank you, Mikey. And then also thank you for the invitation from Swipe RX, who organized this event very good, especially facing the challenging in vaccination in Indonesia and also around Asia. Allow me to share my screen. Okay. As I have the term of reference from the committee, I will present my presentation about the role of pharmacists in Indonesia in bridging the gap in the public knowledge about COVID-19 vaccine option. I'm Kerry Lestari from the Pharmacology and Clinical Department, Universitas Padjadjaran, Indonesia, and also from the Center of Excellence of Higher Education for Pharmaceutical Care Innovation of Indonesia. And also I'm from the Ikatan Apoteker Indonesia or Indonesian Pharmacists Association. In Indonesia, now facing for the mass vaccination to build the herd immunity for the Indonesian community facing the pandemic of COVID-19. As we know, we are almost 1 year has a pandemic of COVID-19. Now in Indonesia also now is facing for 70% of vaccination in Indonesia. This very ambitious challenging for Indonesian country with the biggest number of one of the biggest number of population in Asia. And as we know, we are facing of the rules of pharmacy in the implementation of vaccination, not just as a quite maybe as a rare or as a regular role of pharmacists, but also we have facing the challenging roles of pharmacy in terms of the vaccination. As we know, Indonesia now has declared there is some 6 vaccine who the six vaccine which will be as a providing vaccine in Indonesia. Consists of the vaccine of PT Bio Farma, of our vaccine industry in Indonesia, and also from the AstraZeneca, Sinopharm, Moderna, Pfizer, and Sinovac. As we know, the rules of pharmacy here to produce and to provide the good quality of vaccine, include quality of assurance from the product of vaccine. In policy of the Indonesian government, every vaccine which will be used in Indonesia must be validated and must be has a coordination with PT Bio Farma, and also must be have the emergency use of authorization from BPOM, the National Drug Agency of Indonesia. We're facing about the vaccine distribution because mostly the vaccine has the cold supply chains. This is the rules also of the pharmacist to has a take as the central roles in distribution of vaccine. Why? Because the cold supply chains need the competention of the pharmacists to hold all the distribution on the good hands, so the quality of vaccine will be clarified during the distribution. And then we see for the rules of the pharmacists also in Indonesia is including in research and development of the vaccine. Many of pharmacists in Indonesia has involved in the research and development in vaccine. The director of the operational director of PT Bio Farma is the vaccine company of Indonesian state-owned company, is from also the pharmacist too. And then also not just for the research and development, and also for the manufacture and also hub distribution. That's all is the rules of pharmacies for take the vaccine on a good hands and then become provide to the primary healthcare to deliver to the patient. And then also we need to make sure about the vaccine management in the healthcare facility. We see that I'm sorry, I'm got the wrong presentation. Allow me to change the PowerPoint. I'm sorry. Ini salah nih si Irma. Sorry about the wrong presentation. I will.
Okay, it's okay, ma'am. While you are doing that, let me just remind all the participants that you have to stay for the whole seminar within at least 45 minutes for you to have your certificates be given. Once again, you have to stay in this webinar for at least 45 minutes for you to have your certificates.
Okay, yes. Yeah. I will close one. Okay. Sorry. Okay, I try to find. Okay. This is the right one because the last one is I'm right in the bahasa. And the vaccine storage temperature is depend of the brand. Sinovac, AstraZeneca, and Sinopharm need to distribute in 2 until 8 Celsius degrees. So this is the rules of pharmacy to make sure about the temperature of storage and distribution. Why? Because if the distribution not in those temperatures, so the quality of vaccine is not in the good one, and then we afraid that the compatibility and the effectiveness of the vaccine has disturbance because any kind of some maybe not in the proper distribution. The storage space also must be protected from direct sunlight. And then vaccine storage for healthcare facilities, they do not yet have the standard, which they do not have the standard vaccine refrigerator. as we know of the WHO pre-qualification, can still use with the domestic or household refrigerator. These three brands can also allow to use the household refrigerator. Why? Because the temperature is matched with the household refrigerator. Maybe this is one of the advantages of these three brand of the vaccination. And then where the arrangement of vaccine is carried out based on the classification of sensitivity of the temperature and according to effective vaccine management. The effective vaccine management is also on the pharmacist regulatory. Vaccines also should not be placed in the near the evaporator. And next brand is Moderna. Moderna storage temperature or distribution is minus 20 degrees Celsius. Also, the storage space must be protected from direct sunlight. And then if there is maybe a little bit difficult to find the refrigerator with this temperature, minus 20 degrees Celsius, we can also use the refrigerator like the previous brand, but if we storage in 2 until 8 degrees Celsius, so the vaccine can last for 30 days. There is maybe some obstacles to use the Moderna in some development countries with limitation about the refrigerator who meet the requirement for the Moderna vaccine distribution. And then also Pfizer can be distributed on the storage temperature minus 70 degrees Celsius. The storage type of vaccine Pfizer COVID-19 requires ultra cold chain or UCC facilities. Storage space might be protected from direct sunlight. The UCC facilities is maybe have the also wants to have the ultra low temperature or ULT freezer and special vaccine transportation equipment. This is the challenges for the distribution of the Pfizer, and then it needs also the pharmacists to hold this distribution on the right temperature. UCC vaccine transportation equipment is from the passive containers, consists two kind of the things of the containers, namely Arctec using cold box in the form of PCM or fast change materials, and also thermosipper using dry ice. PCM and dry ice function to maintain the cold temperatures, make sure in the minus 70 degrees Celsius. After distribution, also we need pharmacists in the rules of monitoring and handling of adverse event after COVID-19 vaccination. In Indonesia, called or Indonesia namely is KIVI. KIVI is or KIPI. KIVI is a komite Indonesia untuk pasca vaksinasi. Ya. I think the KIVI is recording and reporting and also investigation of follow-up events after COVID-19 vaccination. And we see that the communication and education about vaccination to the public is also one of the big rules of the pharmacy. Why? Many of population maybe has some kind of afraid or hesitancy about the vaccination. As we know, in every vaccination, there is some hesitancy population for the vaccine. But in terms of pandemic, the hesitancy population need to be included in the vaccination. Why? Because it is not just vaccination by themselves, but also it is vaccination for the safety of herd immunity or the safety of the community. So in terms of the pandemic, the numbers of population is one of the aim to get the herd immunity for the population. So the aim of the communication and education about vaccination to the public by the pharmacists is to increase public understanding about COVID-19 vaccination. The vaccination is not just for the safety of by themselves, but also the vaccination is to build the herd immunity for the population or for the community, and also equip the public with accurate and correct information to avoid misinformation or hoaxes. Many hoaxes nowadays in Indonesia occur in many events, also in some social media that maybe can misleading about the information of the vaccine, and also make some like a negative view about the vaccine. And then also the communication and education needs to increase community and stakeholder participation in the implementation of COVID-19 vaccination, and also to increase the public willingness to get the COVID-19 vaccination. But nowadays in Indonesia, the public willingness to get the COVID-19 vaccination is good enough. And then we are now facing for 10 million doses of COVID-19 vaccine that already arrived in Indonesia this week. But after we have the vaccination, don't forget to still have the discipline in to still have the discipline to make sure to wearing masks, physical distancing, and also get your hands clean. Why? Because the vaccine is not enough, because the numbers of vaccine in Indonesia is still not in the range of safety. I think the numbers of vaccination in Indonesia is just only around 5 to 10% of population in Indonesia. So the strategic is still on three angles that such as the vaccination, 3M. 3M is a public attitude to wear masks, physical distancing, and also keep your hands clean. And then also test, trace, and treatment. There is some three strategic to maybe to decline the numbers of pandemic in Indonesia. And then as we mentioned before, that vaccination is not just for themselves, but also for the safety of country and also the safety of the world. Why? Because none of the country nowadays can be as just thinking about the country, but thinking about the human being all over the world. And then due to the mass vaccination that we are arranged for Indonesia, we see the proportion of the health workers in Indonesia, the number of doctors, the number of the doctors, and then the number of the nurse, I think the composition is still has a challenging for the mass vaccination. So there is some rules in Indonesia that authorize person to vaccination. This is goes to the doctor and midwife. So the authority of midwives and midwives and nurse, it's also possible that health services performed by midwives or nurse are carried out outside their authority due to delegation of authority. So I think with this mechanism, now pharmacists in Indonesia facing the challenges to also has take a part as a vaccinator that already our friend of pharmacists in Philippines already has the authority to become as the vaccinator. This week's the IAI or Indonesian Association of Pharmacists, also discuss about the possibility of pharmacists become the vaccinator in Indonesia due to the needs of a vaccinator that we need to have some mass vaccination on the uh, tight time. Why? Because the numbers of vaccine that already arrive in Indonesia also limited time in expired. So that's why the time to have the vaccinated to the people also is still limited. It means the medical act. It means that if the medical action in the form of giving drugs or injection is beyond of the authority of midwife or nurse, but they are given the delegation, then it is not prohibited. That's why maybe the same kind of this methodology can be used by the pharmacy for the vaccinator. As already discussed before with the previously presenter, Dr. Professor Brian Santos, that also already mentioned that many countries also give the authority to the pharmacist to have the vaccinator by train also, by train of course, yeah. So FIP also released the vaccination services guidelines for the pharmacists. This is the best, the best our activity for vaccination. I mean this is the our best evidence for the activity for the pharmacist as a vaccinator. Why? Because our association in global, FIP, also released the vaccination services guidelines for by the pharmacists. The guideline also can be used for the training or for the pharmacist to get the competition for vaccinator. FIP strongly believes that pharmacists should be involved in vaccination strategies in many roles around the world, not just as a distribution, a distributor, and also not just as the production, but also can be as a vaccinator to the patient, and has given high priority to this area for a decade. In recent years, the number of countries that have introduced vaccinator or vaccination by pharmacists or community pharmacists has increased. That already mentioned by Professor Brian before. However, barriers and oppositions to this broadening of the scope of the pharmacist practice still exist in many countries, like in Indonesia also. And with these resources, we want to inspire these countries to move forward and individuals to act. So the authority comes to the pharmacist who has already trained or who has already certified as a vaccinator. And then also we see the data summary from a global survey here that many countries here has also the numbers of vaccinator administration from the pharmacists. We see that from the on Australia also, and then Canada, and then Denmark, they already give the authority to pharmacists to become as the vaccinator as the vaccinator administration to the patient. Also, we see from Philippines that Professor Brian already present, also Portugal, Spain, Switzerland, and then United Kingdom and United States of America also have the give the authority for vaccinator administration. And this is the data summary for global survey that according to WHO regions for income group or OECD membership, that we see the total number of income group and total number of the vaccination has related. And then the rules of pharmacy in the implementation of vaccination by trainee is still unprepared in Indonesia. Hopefully, they also have the support by other healthcare professional with the spirit to accelerate the numbers of patient who already, or the number of the population that will be enhanced in the number of the herd immunity that get by the population. Though, in spite of that, also the rules of the pharmacies in vaccination or in handle the pandemic COVID-19 also used by the Internet of Things as a media for information and communication. As we know, we have the limitation to have the face-to-face meeting. So the meeting like now, it is more effective and more safety by using the media of Internet of Things, and also like Zoom, like also Gmail and everything that we can still have communication face to face without offline meeting. And then Indonesia, also Ikatan Apoteker Indonesia, IAI, or Indonesian Association of Pharmacists, and then my university, Universitas Pajajaran, Faculty of Pharmacy, Universitas Pajajaran, developed the Internet of Things or the application apps to as medication therapy adherence clinic for enhance the services of pharmacy during the pandemic. We call it INATTI, or Indonesia Test, Trace, and Isolation, to help the government to tightening or to strengthening the treatment, trace, and also test strategy to enhance the pandemic COVID-19 handling in Indonesia. And we see here the mapping of the application like telemedicine, but this is more telemedicine with pharmacists and also involved with the medical doctor there. And we see that here during this pandemic, we still has communication with the patient, with the IT, and then also with the services is interprofessional collaboration here. There is some hypnosis also, there is some pharmacists, and then also some medical doctor there, and then we see the patient virtually with this application, and then this is very good help enough to maybe to help the hospital to assist the patient in self isolation in home. They have the safe methodology for self isolation, and then also to decline the number of the family, like a family cluster during the self isolation. And then also we provide the live chat to provide the service to consult of the consultation of the patient and the family, to know how to do or how to not to do during their self isolation. Thank you. Maybe there is the rules of the pharmacists in Indonesia during our pandemic activity, especially to enhance the number of vaccination in Indonesia. Thank you again for your kind attention, and then thank you for the Swipe RX and the committee for the good arrangement of this webinar. Thank you. Good afternoon.
Thank you very much, Professor Carey, for explaining the differences of the different vaccines used for COVID-19, as well as heightening the importance of combating misinformation about vaccines, about different vaccines, since it's very, very rampant now. And thank you also for sharing the updates about how your country is doing well when it comes to combating this pandemic. Thank you very much, Professor Carey.
Thank you, Mikey.
Now, for our fourth speaker from Cambodia, she graduated her bachelor's degree in pharmacy in the University of Health Sciences, Cambodia. Her most recent experience include being a simulation teacher at the UHS and an officer at Chaktumuk Referral Hospital. Let's all welcome Ms. Kim Sray Tok.
Yes, hello everybody.
Hello.
Good evening, everybody, and including all pharmacists, all beloved pharmacists, because I'm also a pharmacist as well. Today, I'm really happy to join with Swipe 08 on the topic. The let me share you my screen. Yes. Do you hear me? Yes, on topic unlock pharmacist potential role in contribution of successful COVID-19 combating and vaccination rollout in Cambodia. I'm here to share information, all information in terms of my experience and combating of COVID-19 and vaccination rollout in Cambodia. First, I would like to introduce a little bit of me. My name is Kim Sret Toy, and I am a hospital pharmacist at Chaktumuk Referral Hospital. I am also a simulation lecturer at University of Health and Science. And now I'm working for COVID-19 vaccine management system officer. First, everyone, please take a look at COVID-19 update in Cambodia. This report was yesterday. New case was 655 and recover for 400 people, and new cases yesterday from abroad is 72, and total of that 493, but new is just 18. Total cases of yesterday is 45,366. Okay, and here this is COVID-19 vaccination progress report integrated with the Ministry of National Defense in Cambodia. Please notice that we start vaccination from 10 February. Now, today is 24, so this report is just last 2 days from starting vaccination until to 22 June. We already vaccinate 35.18% of target population. In Cambodia, we have target vaccination. We will inject vaccine for 10 million people. It's equal 60.6% of all population in Cambodia. Based on report at 2019, there are 16.49 million people in Cambodia. So if we inject 10 million population, we inject vaccine for 10 million population, we will get 60.6% of all population. Next, vaccination report on April 2018. I'm really proud of my country. I just researched And I got this report from COVID-19 vaccination in Asian member country. Cambodia ranked second in ASEAN as the country that vaccinated more people against COVID-19. Please see the chart. Here, Cambodian vaccinate around 12.40% as a second rank. And Singapore is the first rank, 37.48%. After Indonesia, next Malaysia, Laos, Myanmar, Thai, and Philippines. Rename Vietnam. Vietnam is 0.27%. Okay, now we all just see this report before, but in this slide, I just want to review vaccination for the whole country. The whole country, for first dose, we already inject around 3.5 million people, and second dose, we already inject 2.7 million people. It's around 35%. After that, I will specify only in big city. It is Phnom Penh. Here, data of vaccination in Phnom Penh. There are more districts, more than in the table. In the table there are only 8 districts that we get vaccination number from the defense ministry and district administration. In those districts, we have 1.3 million people, and we vaccinate 1 million people already. It's equal to 75.7%. It is a significant successful of vaccination. Now, I would like to share you what we did and what we are doing on this. It is a government vaccination plan. Each country has different master plan in vaccination. The same as we live in different country, we have different culture. For Cambodia, we prioritize. We inject for frontline officer first, and then high-risk group. People live in capital city, Phnom Penh, and the last one is countryside. We have 24 provinces. You can see the picture. Frontline officer, there are police, doctor, pharmacist, other healthcare provider, and army. And this is patient. This is army. So we inject them first, and after we vaccinate to senior citizen, outbreak zone, and all staff working in the ministry. And for countryside, you can read there are many provinces, but we also prioritize as much as we can. We prioritize some province where the outbreak happening, such as Kanda, Prasenuk province, Siem Reap, Kampong Cham, etc. In the picture, I would like to introduce you that this is a map of Phnom Penh, and we categorize into 3 zones: 1 yellow zone, and 2 orange zone, and 3 red zone. Yellow zone is safe zone. The orange zone is there is some cases, there is few cases of COVID-19, and red zone is the outbreak zone. So you should not go to the red zone. At the right picture, near the left, this one is the map of Phnom Penh as well, but after we quarantine 14 days. This picture I got from Ministry of Information on Facebook. You can search. It's on 27 April, and after quarantine, most of area become yellow zone. Here, before red zone and now yellow zone. This picture report on 12 May. Now, we talk about vaccination process in Phnom Penh. Phnom Penh, which is a capital city of Cambodia, has totally 14 districts and cover 2.28 million citizens. In order to provide the vaccination to such a large population in a faster way, we are increasing until 182 vaccination centers in Phnom Penh. And Ministry of Health stated that Phnom Penh vaccination campaign will be finished this month, June. Actually, we just finished yesterday, 23rd. Yes, we finished first dose because of the progress has been faster than planned. However, we finished first dose, and some place we already finished second dose. So, who are the main players who give the vaccine to community? There are three themes of vaccination. First, Ministry of Health. Second, there are volunteers, but there are also healthcare providers that study about medicine or something like that. In here, data vaccine in Phnom Penh from 18 February to 20 yesterday. Here, we have three types of vaccine available in Cambodia, such as Sinopharm, Covid-19 or AstraZeneca, and Sinovac. We total yesterday around 1.3 million doses, same as 1.3 vaccine. So we already inject vaccine many people. And this is a report from my hospital, reported of Jatamuk Hospital from the starting vaccination on 19 February until yesterday. My hospital vaccinated 32,698 people. Hello, yes, welcome back. So this slide, we contribute successful COVID-19 combating and healing faster by three main actions. First, precaution. Second, vaccination. And third, lockdown. Now it's our turn. What are potential role of pharmacists? As mentioned about, not only vaccination down are both contributing in helping Cambodia heal faster. So what will pharmacists do to participate in COVID-19 successful vaccination rolling out in the country as mentioned above? Yes, In my experience, I manage stock of COVID-19 medicine. It's universal medicine for urgent need. Example, and antalgic like paracetamol, antihistamine. In here we use cetirizine mostly. Mucolytic we use promycin 8 milligram and vitamin C extra. Um, for medicine are the main medicine. Now we have another COVID-19 mission. It is called house treatment. We arrange doctor and nurse to treat people who get COVID-19 who stay at home. So they bring medicine and we involve by research medicine or prepare medicine for them to give directly to the patient. And second, we have to follow and promote Ministry of Health guideline or government strategy. Government strategy is here. Yeah, this slide is government strategy. First, we cannot inject for the second or third priority or third people. We have to follow government by inject vaccine for frontline officer only. And next, we have to advise patients on how to protect themselves even though they already get vaccine. 3 do and 3 done, and motivating the community who hesitate to get vaccine. Some people still don't want get vaccine because of some curious, but we have to inspire them to get vaccine as mentioned. We have schedule and especially we have specific schedule on district. So we have to motivate them to go on time. And one more, I involved in many COVID-19 in missions such as quarantine mission, vaccination mission, and ORT. ORT it means urgent response team. ORT is a team that deliver or send patients who get COVID-19 positive to stay at hospital from their house or their hotel to hospital. RT responsible for delivering only. And quarantine mission, you all participant and all speaker, if you come to Cambodia, you maybe meet me because you have to quarantine 14 days, and I will go to check your health and your temperature every day until you get COVID-19 negative. And I also working for vaccination mission. Now, one more. As a pharmacist, we have to manage vaccine, stock, organizing, separate, and control stock. We have to stock medicine with the right temperature, like Dr. Carey mentioned, at 2 to 8 Celsius and degrees Celsius. And one more thing I want to add is about refrigerator. If you stock vaccine in refrigerator, please look at refrigerator guidelines. Some refrigerator has limitation of stock, so we cannot stock over the limitation. If we stock more and more vaccine over limitation, our vaccine may be die. So no efficacy. And for organizing, we have to organize vaccine for first dose and second dose we have to prepare for people who already get first vaccine and reserve second dose. If we don't organize, some people who already got first dose cannot get second dose. Separate for separate currently, my hospital separate medicine and organize medicine for health center and other vaccine center to inject vaccine for population at their zone. Now we don't have I mean that now we are stalker. Now we are the separator. We don't inject vaccine for people of Cambodian citizen. One more thing, control. We have to control. Vaccine. It means that some vaccine some vaccine we cannot inject for second dose with different place. If they come to my hospital, we inject a second dose for them only. If they come from another place, we cannot inject for them. But there is a little exception. And the last one is being a pharmacist. I participate in IT sector. I never expect that I working in IT sector because I just learned from my university and I know about medicine, about stock, blah blah blah. But about IT, I never learned about it. Now I do more than what I used to do. I am a COVID-19 vaccine management system officer. So I have user to use vaccination mobile app. I put my email and password into the system, and I can get access, and then I register for the patient for all their information into the system. This we work to facilitate vaccination process completely and faster. Here, when you get vaccination in Cambodia, you will get COVID-19 vaccination card. And QR code here, it include all information that I register for you. So it is useful for you to use this card to travel anywhere. Lastly, it is my picture of mission, quarantine mission. Here, we were writing report, and the last one is we are doing for quarantine people. Vaccination mission even though I am a pharmacist, but I also participate in vaccinate I'm sorry. Although I am a pharmacist, I also participate in inject vaccine. In my country, pharmacists cannot inject any medicine. We only cooperate with doctor, and we work with medicine, but we don't have any role in inject. But I learned from my hospital, and I inject just a little case in terms of lacking of worker, sometimes. And here, the activity um, of us that we are all introducing information of patient into COVID-19 management system. Here, the last one is the picture come from your card. Here, your card. When you scan a QR code, you will receive this. Your information, your ID, vaccine, and second dose, first dose that you inject vaccine. Do you know she is the second winner? Our government offer prize for people who get vaccine at a specific number. She is the second, maybe second million people who get vaccine. So she got around $1,000 from our government. Yes. Lastly, thank you for your listening and thank you for SwapOX. Yes, Okon.
All right. Thank you very much, Mom Kim, for explaining the statistics of what's happening in the current pandemic. No, it's really nice to see that despite the effort, no, when you see it visually on a pie chart, that Singapore is doing really their best to vaccinate all their people, and as other Asian countries follow. And it's also nice that you've mentioned the, let's say, flow chart of what's happening there. You said precaution, vaccination, then lockdown. That's what's happening, I think, in Cambodia right now. And upon on reflecting it on the difference in the Philippines, what happened with us was lockdown, precaution, then vaccination. So I guess it's time to think about the errors, or think about outside the box when it comes to assessing this pandemic. Now, once again, thank you very much to our speakers. Let's proceed to our question and answer portion. Now, for our first question, this is for Sir Brian Posadas. All right. So, regarding immunizing pharmacists, where will be the actual training be done?
Okay, because we are in pandemic now, what we're currently doing is the didactics, no, the concepts. These are all taught using Zoom platform, and the skills assessment and skills training. We are also using Zoom platform where there is a demonstration and return demonstration online. Except that, of course, when they do their return demonstration, it's also via Zoom, so they're doing it on their own in their respective homes. No? And then they'll go through a skills assessment also online. After they pass the 3 levels of training, that's the time we let them have a face-to-face skills assessment. We allow them to choose the physician and or an immunizing pharmacist near their area where they are practicing. So at least it's more, I don't know, because of the limitation of the quarantines. No? Those who are near their area is basically the ones who are assessing them on their final skills assessment. But everything is happening online. Only that part of skills assessment, the level 4, happens face to face.
I see. Thank you very much, Sir Brian. I guess that was a Filipino who was asking. No, if you have any other questions with regards to the immunizing pharmacy program, you can always check the Philippine Pharmacists Association Facebook page. So there are updates there on when and how to enroll this immunizing pharmacy program.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you very much, Sir
We'll have our
Ryan.
batch 5, Mikey, by the way, on July 5.
Oh,
So
see, yes,
yeah,
that's
if you
good.
want to still join the batch 5. Batch
Oh,
6, sorry.
okay, so we have ongoing batches now for Filipinos who want
Mhm.
to help their community by becoming immunizing pharmacists. The door is always open for Philippine Pharmacists Association. Thank you very much, Sir Brian. So we have another question here. So I guess this is for everyone. How do you encounter those public who is demanding their preferred vaccine? Yes, that is very, very common because we have different perceptions on vaccines. So I guess we could start with um, Malaysia. Sir Professor Haniki.
Yes, thank you for the question. Um, well, the way that we try to convince our citizen is that the available vaccine is the supposedly best vaccine for you for this current time. But given the fact that we now have few choices, we definitely would tailor it to the safety and suitability, and also taking into consideration, of course, the efficacy. Uh, but knowing that they're all effective, that's why they are approved. We try to advocate the use of suitable vaccine, considering the comorbidities or any other factors that would make them ineligible or more suitable for one vaccine or another. Of course, they have their preference given, for example, maybe they have read up on certain information or they receive information from friends and other health professionals. But we as pharmacists can always convince them that the choice or the selection of the vaccine by health professionals do take into consideration these factors, and if they are offered, should be the safest and the most suitable vaccine for them at the current time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Nick. How about Professor Dr. Kerry? What's your opinion regarding the how on people demanding a certain particular brand of vaccines? How would you convince those people? Okay, I think
Hello.
okay, yeah,
Sorry,
okay,
sorry, sorry,
yes.
of the connection. The question is this question on
No,
the screen. Oh,
this one.
how do you encounter those public who is demanding their preferred vaccine? Yeah, I think demand of the vaccine now is quite big due to the understanding of the people that the vaccination is important for her for their herd immunity, and to encounter those public who is demanding their preferred vaccine. Uh, I will say that any kind of the effectivity of vaccine is cannot compare because the effectivity of vaccine is depend on the um, depend of the metabolism of each person. So I think, but all the people has the right to choose, and depend on of the vaccine provided in the country. So I think it's okay if some people want to prefer some brand of the vaccine, but it depends on of the vaccine providing in the country. Indonesia now facing for just two brand, just Sinovac and AstraZeneca uh, is already on the health facility in Indonesia. But in any kind of the brand of the vaccine, it depend also on the emergency use of authorization of our national drug agency. Why any kind of vaccine is okay, but it needs to have some registration in our national board of the drug and agency in Indonesia. That is my opinion. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Kerry. Now, I'll just choose another question so we could accommodate more questions as much as possible. No? So this is one question. No, this may sound silly, but as it is a genuine concern of mine, a viewer asked, for a person who has very shaky or unsteady hands and would love to be a vaccinator pharmacist, is it ideal or possible to undergo training as a vaccinator?
E- Maybe I could answer that now,
Yes,
Mikey.
yes, 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 yes.
Yes, of course. No, because when we teach pharmacists how to vaccinate, that includes making the patient stable and making your hand stable before you actually administer it. So basically, what we do is when we administer, it's not like you're doing it like this. Now, usually there's an arm, no? So you have, well, of course, there's an arm. So you touch the patient, and then you rest this on the patient's arm, and then you administer it. So basically, the stability for your arm is also coming from the patient's stability. So there are techniques for that, and these things are being taught in the training program. So yes, even if you have shaky and steady hands, maybe what would be more difficult if it's really extremely shaky. It's really uncontrollable. But slightly shaky hands, we can still work on that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm agree with Sir Brian,
Mhm.
but if the pharmacist has a tremor like that, maybe
Yeah.
it's difficult because
Mhm.
tremor is
Mhm.
difficult to to undergo the
Yeah.
vaccine. Yeah, but if it is slightly shaky and or unsteady, it's okay.
Mhm.
All right. Thank you very much. Now, for our next question, could the new variant of the COVID-19 virus reduce the efficacy of the vaccine since there are very numerous variants that are appearing now? So, who can answer?
Okay, I will try to answer. Yes, a new mutation of the COVID-19 can be decline the efficacy of the vaccine. So that's why, like a vaccine of influenza, each year it is has a different vaccine. So we know that if we have the vaccine of influenza, it needs to revaccinate it again every years. It is depend of the whole genome sequencing project that we can sequence the mutation of the virus. So I think the variant of the mutation of the COVID-19 virus also can be detected in the WGS project or whole genome sequencing project that also can be report to the vaccine industry, which is the formula of vaccine is still effective or need to enhance with other kind of formula. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there anyone who wants to answer the question? All right, so let's proceed to the next question. Is there a delayed reaction after receiving the COVID vaccine? Sometimes my muscle where the vaccine was injected, it is aching and it has been a month since I've received the last dose. So are there any delayed reactions after receiving the COVID vaccine?
Yeah, this is some kind of the adverse event from the vaccination. But this is like light adverse event of the vaccination, and it is common.
Yes, muscle pain at the injection site is one of
Yeah.
the common adverse effect. And if since it has persisted to a month, I mean, it would be best for you to for the person who asks is to tell your
Uh,
local government or local
or
health unit.
doctor.
Agree,
That
Mikey. If I may add,
Yes.
Yeah, agree that they have to already go to their nearest health facility for it to be checked. So, what is the cause of that muscle ache, muscle pain? There are some factors that we need to consider. It can be because of the vaccine or because of how the vaccine was administered.
Administered.
Remember, if
Yeah,
the
yeah.
injection site, where the vaccine was administered, like for example, if it was injected almost near here, really higher, there could be even shoulder injury if there is a wrong technique in the injection. That's the reason why the suggestion for this is the patient should go to the facility for proper diagnosis. So we could figure out what is the cause of this, if it's really attributable to the vaccine side effect.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much. For our next question, how about receiving different brands for 2 doses of COVID-19 vaccination? For example, the first dose we got Sinovac and second dose we got AstraZeneca. Is it safe? And how about its effectiveness? I guess I can call on Professor Haniki to um, share your insights about this question on receiving different brands for 2 doses of COVID-19 vaccines.
Thank you, Mikey. Um, yes, the WHO has issued statement that you can combine or how to I say heterologous use of vaccine. You start with one brand and then you use another one, but it's also practiced in several countries. And what we worry is that we do want to see further data on the effectiveness and the safety following this heterologous use of different brands. Initial statements from body of authorities advocate the use given the fact that there are similarities in their actions, in their outcomes, particularly effectiveness. So, if the patient, for some reasons, happen to be given a different brand, so certain combination is allowed, and I think best to refer to your healthcare provider, and of course, based on evidence and also statements supporting such practice from bodies from, for example, WHO, NIH, and also Ministry of Health. So certain practice, such practice is allowed, but I'm sure pharmacovigilance, again, the role of pharmacists is practice, and our role is crucial here to ensure that patients who receive a second dose from different brand would then be conferred the level of immunity required suitable to ensure that they are protected. So best to double check before you get yourself injected with a different brand. Thank you.
May I add something?
Please, Prof.
Yeah, thank you. In my country regulation, cannot allow to has different brand on two shot because different brand we afraid at different kind of the vaccine characteristic, and then the efficacy and then also the safety of the clinical trials. It is depend of one brand with two shot or one brand with one shot. So I think due to of this clinical trial that we know the dose effective about the vaccine, it is from the clinical trial of each brand. So I think the doses and then the effectivity and the safety of the clinical trial is each brand is very different. So in our country, in Indonesia, apologize that we cannot do the second vaccination with different brand. Thank you.
How about Mom Kim? Do you have any more to add?
Yes, in my opinion, if you have different type of vaccine to get, you should suspend at least 3 months. Based on WHO guideline, if you want to get new type of vaccine, you have to wait until 3 months. Yep, I just have this one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So, Sir Brian, do you have anything to add?
Well, maybe I agree with Professor Kerry. It depends on each country's regulation based on the analysis of the task group, different task groups in charge of it. But basically, we have to understand that when this vaccine went under trials, they go on a certain protocol, and the stability and the effectiveness really depends on based on that trial. So we have to no, no, stick to that unless for some unforeseen circumstances where the next dose is really not available. But as much as possible, you stick with what your brand is. And it's actually not with the brand. Something that has to be corrected in the mindset of people is it's not about the brand. Every vaccine would work in training and activating your immune system. So regardless of whatever brand you are taking, as much as possible, you take the same brand. But whatever vaccine is available, approved in your country, that would exhibit an effect that it would prevent severe COVID-19. So any vaccine would do. So don't be picky about the brand. Don't deliberately change another brand so you get best of both worlds. Now that's not how it goes. You should activate your immune system based on the clinical trials initially presented.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone who answered. For our next question, are we required or do we need to be vaccinated by another COVID vaccine brand if we were initially vaccinated with, for example, Sinovac, since there are countries who don't acknowledge people who are vaccinated with Sinovac? I guess they're asking, kasi there are certain countries who are only acknowledging certain specific brands of vaccines. So, how do you respond to this question? Let's start with Ma'am Kim. Actually, this is very, very common because, for example, in certain countries, they are only requiring, let's say, Moderna or Pfizer. They need those kinds of vaccines in order to enter those countries. So, I guess the question would be after the first COVID vaccination on a certain brand, how long should they wait on how on or how long should they wait for them to have another brand of vaccine since they don't acknowledge, for example, the brand stated on the question.
Oh, yes, I got it. Normally, we all can get any vaccine. They are safe because our vaccine were approved by WHO, so they are safe already. You can get a vaccine, Sinovac as mentioned, for first dose and then second dose at 21st day, 21 count from first day, and you can get a second dose. And after that, if you want to get another vaccine, you really can just wait until they save time interval for Sinovac maybe 6 months, AstraZeneca 6 months, and Sinopharm maybe 3 months. So after that, you can get any other vaccine. As we know altogether, like flu or cold vaccine, we have 1 year duration only. Next year, we have to inject new. So it's the same protocol. Yep.
All right.
Thank you.
Are there any more who wants to
Mikey,
add?
if I may add,
Sure, sir.
maybe okay to answer that question on a practical side of it. Uh, if you really have to go to that country where the country specifically identifies only the brand of vaccine that should be allowed to their country, we have to respect their laws. No, those laws were implemented based on the analysis of their experts. So whether we like it or not, if you really have to go to that country, then we abide by it. There are just as mentioned by Kim, a number of months that you would have to wait. But on a practical side of it, uh, the supply is scarce. So being mindful of others, don't force yourself to get another vaccine of another dose, because there are a lot of people who are waiting to get vaccinated, whatever is available. So unless it's really critical that you have to go to that country, that's the time you may consider and consult with your healthcare professionals. But nonetheless, you should not worry about it. And if you just want to get vaccinated because you want these two doses, let's be mindful of others. A lot of our a lot of our countrymen, no, also wants to get vaccinated. So let's give it to them. If you already have the Sinovac vaccine, Sinopharm, whatever it is that is already given to you, stick with it already. Be thankful that you already have that vaccine, and just avoid going to that country first, no? Where your vaccine is not accepted, because we don't have much choice. It's not even readily available. You cannot purchase, you cannot choose, because it is run by the government, it is controlled by the government. So let's just uh again, no, mindfulness, it's what's important at this time of pandemic.
Yeah,
Yes.
very wise, Sir Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sir Brian.
Yes, I got your point, Miss Doctor. But as I mentioned about, in case there has low immunization, so they have to repair or get new vaccination. Yes, your speak is really good that we have to share vaccine to another country or poor country. Yes, but I just want to ask the answer of uh, I just want to answer out the question that want to ask if they can inject a second dose or another brand of vaccination vaccine or not. Thank you.
Uh, Thank you very much. So for the benefit of our time, as much as I want to ask all the questions of our participants, we have to narrow it to one last question. So this question is for all the speakers. So many were afraid to get vaccinated, as they were saying that the vaccines were made at a very, very short period of time. In short, it was very made fast. It was rapidly available. How could we convince those people? So we could start with Professor Kerry. How would you convince your people to be vaccinated?
Yeah. As I mentioned before, it is common in every vaccination, some hesitancy comes or goes to the population. But in terms of pandemic, we must to consider that the vaccination is not for the safety or for this or for the importance of the saving life of he or herself, but the vaccination during the pandemic is for the herd immunity, for healing the world, for healing the country. So that's why we try to make some many propaganda to educate people that it is not just the vaccination itself, but it is also for the humanity, for the human being. Thank you. Something like that.
Thank you very much,
But it is
Professor
not,
Kerry.
it is not easy, but we try to make some promotion and propaganda like that. Thank you.
Thank you
Agree.
very much, Dr. Kerry. How
Yes.
about you, Professor Nick?
Uh,
How can you convince the people to get vaccinated?
yeah, I always tell my students and of course other healthcare professionals, in God we trust, others we need data. So all these clinical trials that had been conducted with rigorous requirements, and given the circumstance that we are in a pandemic and emergency situation, also taken into consideration the prior knowledge that we have on vaccine production and also dealing with certain coronavirus. Remember, even in Malaysia, we had the Nipah virus, and we had the capacity and the knowledge, and also the sharing of countries. For example, China, when they first started to have this pandemic, and then the sequencing of the viral genome, and then the sharing of it, and then the technology, and then of course the support, many factors came into place to ensure that vaccines are produced quickly, but adhering to the rigorous scientific regime and protocol to ensure safety, effectiveness, and also quality. And that is also screened through by individual countries' regulatory body, for example, National Pharmaceutical Regulatory Agency in Malaysia. Again, looking at the data, also conducting studies, additional studies to strengthen the data that we have on vaccines. So the time frame that we have on the production is not necessarily short, but it's just expedited given the urgency of the situation, and also coupled with the support, which comes in many forms: financial, technology sharing, prior knowledge, infrastructure, and so on and so forth. Don't worry in terms of quality and safety. The products are suitable to be used. And we also have the pharmacovigilance, as I mentioned just now. All countries have that in place to ensure the phase 4 continues many, many years beyond the introduction of vaccines. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Nick. How about Ma'am Kim? How would you convince your countrymen to undergo vaccination?
I'm sorry, my internet is slow. Can you ask again?
Okay. The question is, since all the vaccines were somehow rushed and most people are hesitant about taking the vaccine, how would you convince them to undergo vaccination?
Okay, I got it. First, we have to show that the safety of the vaccine by mention the good difference for them. Example, Cambodian people first mostly they don't trust on Sinopharm, and now they are all trust Sinopharm because the Sinopharm has introduced into safety use in WHO. So we can convince them by mention popular reference or like WHO, CDC. Yes. Second, we have to inject vaccine first. As healthcare provider or pharmacist, I have to inject vaccine and I show them that I already inject. I have no any problem. Yeah, and they all can get vaccine. Get vaccine. It doesn't mean that you have to get any dangerous get vaccine to get our health strong. It means that we cannot get severe disease or or like Dr. Regan already mentioned at presentation. Yes, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ma'am Kim. And last but not the least, Sir Brian, how would you convince your countrymen?
Okay, I always believe that people perish due to lack of knowledge. So basically, to combat that, we just have to educate them. As a pharmacist, let's try, to simplify how we explain the concept of immunology to our patients because it's a complex topic. If we try to explain it very technical to a lay people or a lay person, that would be really difficult for them to understand. But simply, let's put it at this context. Educating them means letting them understand in the simplest way possible. So to alleviate those fears, like for example, this was hurriedly done. Yes, this was fast, but there's no cutting corners that happened. The number of samples or the patients involved in the trial are the same. The control procedures were also the same. So there's no shortcut. There's no cutting corners. It still went through the process. And we know not everything on clinical trials now goes to the production or being approved for emergency use authorization of the country. So once the regulatory bodies already released the emergency use authorization, that already proves that this has passed the clinical safety trials. And as a pharmacist, we know how tedious the process is. So we really have to boost the confidence of the public by explaining it to them in the simplest way possible and reminding them that, again, vaccine can help their immune system at the end of the day, it's still their immune system responding to the vaccine that would spell the difference. So they have to still practice all the protocols as mandated by the government. But at the end of the day, don't give false hope that you will never get COVID vaccine just because you're vaccinated. Let's be truthful to that fact. And again, always go back to the benefit outweighing the risks. I guess as a pharmacist, we are very much knowledgeable in how to do this. We're doing this for all other medications. We know all other medications that they're taking, not just this vaccine, can potentially have adverse events. And that's the purpose why we are here in the community, in the society. We have to manage these potential adverse events.
Thank you very much to all our speakers for those for imparting very good insights with regards to the current pandemic, no, and reminders to our participants on how to get their certificates. Swipe RX will send an email to those who have spent a minimum of 45 minutes in the webinar. The participants with less than 45 minutes will not receive a certificate. You are required to fill out the feedback form by clicking the link provided in the email. Make sure that you have a Swipe RX account. Make sure that you are connected to a stable internet network while answering the feedback form. Do not leave or close the Swipe RX app. Closing or leaving the app while answering the feedback form will be marked as a failed attempt. There's no score requirement to get the certificate. You just need to complete the feedback form. You will get the certificate within 48 hours after completing the form. If there are any questions that you can ask or any question that may arise, or for more information, you can email us hello@swiperxapp.com. So once again, I would like to thank everyone who participated with us, who stayed with us up to the very end of this webinar series. Thank you for
Yeah.
staying tuned in Swipe RX app.
Swipe RX.